start the microphone. So welcome to the annual parish meeting. As I think you're all aware, this is something we have to have every year by law, but it's a pleasure anyway to hear what's going on in the village. And it's not a council meeting as such. Now, I'm not sure if George Bowyer is going to be able to turn up and give a Ward Councillors report, but they're actually in what is called purdah at the moment, before the elections in May, which means they can't say very much anyhow, so that's probably okay. We have had some apologies from Nikki Birchall, Chris Wardle, who's the other Ward Councillor, and real last minute blow because her son is sick, Ashley Barry, who was going to give us an update on the Jubilee. So I think, Nick, as you're on the meeting, and Russell, you're on the meeting, and I go to the meeting, perhaps we can all try and just remember what the various status of things is and to report on that.
Also, apologies for the reports from Neil Humphrey, Nikki Birchall, Keith Bartram, the lady from Acorn, Tracy. I think that's about it. I'm totally right.
So, welcome, George. I was just saying I wasn't sure whether you'd be able to make it. And indeed, if you did make it, how much you would be able to say. Are you going on to another meeting? Or...
I will, yes, John.
Okay. Well, in that case, I think there's two of you that are going on fairly quickly, which is yourself and Dave Huckle. So would you like to give us an update on Ward Council straight away from that viewing frame? And it's on the microphone. So over to you, Councillor Bowyer.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. My name is George Bowyer. For those of you that haven't met me, I am one of your 3 Ward Councillors for the Milton Keynes Borough Ward of Hanslope, or New North and Hanslope. First of all, I would like to pay a quick tribute to my colleague Andrew Geary, who, as many of you know, has stood down this year and is not standing for re-election in the current round of Borough Council elections that are running at the moment. Obviously, the elections are running, so I'm somewhat limited as to the things I can say. I can't be too political, but I will quickly run through what we Ward Councillors have been doing in the year. We've been working, I hope, fairly closely with the Parish Council. Number of things have been going on that you will all be aware of. First one, of course, is the new development at Carrington Close, and we've been assisting the Parish Council as much as we have been able with various issues going on there, particularly the one with regards to the Section 106 issues and the amount of affordable housing that will be in the development. And I have to say, I think the Parish Council has done an extremely good job at defending the village's interest in that matter, and particularly getting a very good result in dealing with Milton Keynes Council over the number of affordable houses that should be built there. The other thing that we've been helping with earlier on in the year is the renewal of the Castlethorpe neighbourhood plan, which, as you know, went to referendum this year and was very fast. It is incredibly important to have a good neighbourhood plan, and it can make the difference between having a situation as in Hanslope, where you get hundreds of houses shoved onto the edge of your village because the developers win planning inspection decisions, and when you don't. And there are some villages within the borough of Milton Keynes that have decided not to bother with neighbourhood plans, and quite a lot of them have gone on to regret it. So I really do encourage you to support your parish council in keeping the neighbourhood plan process going, even though it's extremely tedious and time consuming, because it does make an additional level of protection for your village, and it's well worth the effort. And certainly there were proposals which fortunately have been shown, even though they were put forward by my own party. They were fairly poor proposals. to renew the or to change the planning proposals nationally, and neighbourhood plans would have been even more important then. And no doubt someone else will come up and try and review the planning regulations again at some point. So having a good neighbourhood plan, I really recommend. The third one has been the installation of broadband into the village, and again, the Parish Council has been doing a good job in negotiating to get that into the village, which many other places have not managed to do. On a borough-wide basis, on the larger issues within Milton Keynes, your ward councillors have been working on Plan MK, which is the overall plan which governs development within Milton Keynes. It's just been renewed not long ago, and even though that's only just happened, fairly soon we will be working on the next iteration of changes to Plan MK, and trying to make sure that we end up with as much of our green area around the villages and the rural parts of Milton Keynes, especially North Milton Keynes, protected as much as we can. We all accept that there's got to be development. You know, we are a growing nation in a very small country. We have the same population as France in a quarter of its land mass, and that's why we have an awful lot of development going on. But if you go to France, or if you go to Ireland and other places where they don't have our planning system, you'll see an awful lot of ribbon development where the roads between each village are just developed along the whole way. So our planning structure does seem to work. We are trying to keep as much of our green area as we can, and it's an important job that we will carry on doing. As many people are aware, there have been quite a lot of planning issues in Milton Keynes. We've had a number of developments that haven't gone very well. Some of you have heard of the Blakelands development, which ended up with a massive warehouse being built right next to a residential area. And when the planning permission was issued, various conditions that should have been put on planning permission were not. And there have been a number of other issues with that. We also have the MK East development, which is the new 5,000 house development in between Newport Pagnell Junction 14 at the M1, where they're building a new motorway bridge, which is a good idea because we do need a new motorway bridge. We're going to have more development on this side, but they're just then feeding that into the grid road system one roundabout further down. So it's still going to cause the same traffic jams that 5,000 houses would if they hadn't put the motorway bridge in. And we are trying to do everything we can to ameliorate the problems for commuters that will involve. One particular issue is that they're putting in a new grid road around the edge of the development, and as you know, Milton Keynes is built on the grid road system, and it keeps traffic flowing. And the idea was always that it was supposed to be dual carriageways, roundabouts, and no street level pedestrian crossing, so either underpasses or bridges to protect people and to keep the traffic flowing. Now, for some reason, the plans for this new part of MK East, they have put aside the land for dual carriageways, they put aside the money for dual carriageways, but they're not building a dual carriageway, they're only building a single carriageway. And despite criticism from a number of us, saying if you've got the land and the money, you might as well build it at the same time, because it's going to take less building, involve less time, and be quicker for everybody. They decided not to do that, which means we all know they will need to dual carriageway that bit eventually, and in 5 or 10 years' time, we'll be sitting right behind roadworks again. We've had a lot of discussion about the government's proposal for the Oxford-Cambridge Arc. The Oxford-Cambridge Arc seems to have gone quiet now. This was a new proposed development to link Oxford, Cambridge and Milton Keynes in the middle, and to put somewhere in the region of 1 million new houses with business opportunities as well on that arc. That's gone very quiet. The only part of it that's still going ahead is what they can now call East-West Rail. I'm sitting on the Milton Keynes North Advisory Group for East-West Rail, and I'm attending a conference I think next week about the future of the Oxford-Cambridge Arc. It shouldn't actually affect the physical development in this area, but it will affect the income of Milton Keynes, and it will affect jobs and housing and all those sorts of things. So it will affect residents here, even though it's not a direct development effect. And the other big thing that's gone on in the borough this year has been the change from well, one thing that's happened and one thing that's proposed. The first one that's happened is the change from the old bus systems to what they now call demand responsive transport. And they've stopped subsidising the bus routes that we used to have, or a lot of them, and introduced this new idea called demand responsive transport, where you telephone for a bus and it comes to pick you up personally. In theory, it's a good idea because an awful lot of the buses were empty. The problem is that as it becomes more popular, it becomes more expensive and they can't afford to run it. They haven't got enough of these little buses. So in the rural areas where we are, for example, you try and get one of those, you're going to be waiting for almost definitely an hour, possibly longer, for one of these things to turn up. So it's something that we are working on to see how we can get the problems resolved. And the other big issue that's going on has been the change in the waste disposal plans. The current fleet of bin lorries is basically up for replacement, and the contract is up for renewal. And the current administration has decided to go on, as you might have heard, to an all wheelie bin system, which means that we will all have 4 wheelie bins on our houses, which we'll have to put somewhere, which is going to make everywhere look absolutely lovely on bin day. They're already talking about going from weekly to fortnightly recycling collections. We're worried that might be the thin end of the wedge, and we're going to go fortnightly bin collections as well. Hasn't been proposed yet, but it's that slippery slope. But the real problem that I worry about, and I've been raising consistently at these debates, is the issue of what they call side waste. At the moment, as a resident of Milton Keynes, however much rubbish you've got, you put it outside your house, the council comes along and they take it away. With the new bin systems, they will only take what you can put in your bin. So if you have more than will go in your bin and you put a black bag beside the bin, it will be left behind. Now, for most of us, that won't be a problem because most people, our law-abiding people, will book a tip run and we will take it to a tip, or we'll keep it till next week, or whatever. But there, as we know, there are some people that buck the system, and when they have a bin bag left and it hasn't been collected, what are they going to do with it? A lot of people will fly tip it. And where are they going to fly tip it? In the rural areas where they're not needed. So I see that as being a big problem for us into the future, and something that we're going to have to campaign on to try and make them pick up what is called side waste, which is the bins, the bags that won't fit into the bins. So those are the brief rundown of the issues that we've been dealing with. I don't want to take you too long, Mr. Chairman, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has them.
Any questions for George? That's a fairly comprehensive run through. Not only covered the whole borough, it covered most of what I was going to say as well. So. Okay, well, in that case, thank you very much, George. And you've got, we are thinking, Steve did suggest we move to a different day of the week to ease the burden on Ward Councillors.
It would be nice, we do every Monday as Parish Council somewhere in the ward, except when there are 5 Mondays a month, because we'll just have to do it once a month. And there aren't 5 Mondays in every month. Yeah. We get every 5th Monday. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
And
thank you very much for everything you have done, because George really did help us quite a lot on a number of the issues turning up, particularly with Milton Keynes planning, to say the least. So we do appreciate that support. We do need it. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, if I can just add, if anybody does have any issues with council business, please do get into contact with myself, I hate that, me, or Chris Ward, or whoever is going to replace Andrew Geary after the election. And you can always find us here at the Parish Council meeting. We don't know where to find us otherwise, but look on the website, our details there, and indeed on Facebook.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, we move on to Dave. Thank you very much for coming out. So Dave is recently returned PCSO for our area.
Yeah.
After Josh was gone
He's
Wolverton.
gone to Wolverton. We've had a bit of a change around. Since I've come back from area in the last, I came back about last October. I've been looking after the villages on the A509, so like Sherrington, Gayhurst, Stoke Goldington. That's where I meet the other ward councillors. We cross over all the meetings. But I also said I want to take this back on because Josh was stepping back. I've got previous experience of Hounslow, Castle and Hampshire. So I said, can I come back? And I said, yes, you can, which is good for me, and hopefully it's good for you. So I've got a brief report. I've only gone back as far as last April to today. Overall crime, we've had 28 reported crimes. That includes action fraud of one public order, 3 antisocial behaviour, 2 assaults with injury, 5 assaults without injury, 5 theft from vehicles, 4 thefts with 3 criminal damage, 1 missing person, 1 report of hair coursing, 1 report of dangerous dogs, and 1 report of drugs. I think just to clarify the assault with injury, do you think all 5 assaults in Castle sound quite a lot? If it's a domestic related incident, one of the crimes from that domestic could be an assault. So that's why you seem to have quite a few assaults. So if you've got domestics in the village, that's why your assaults will go up. Okay, so just want to clarify that point. You haven't got a problem in the village, but if there's been domestic within the property, they will crime an assault with or without injury on that system. Okay. We've had a few changes in the area. We've now got across Thames Valley Police a rural crime tasking team, and they're specifically set up to deal with rural crime, which would include the village of Castle, Hounslow, Hampshire, and all the other 20 odd villages that me and Arlie look after. It's led by an inspector with 2 sergeants. I think at the moment they've got 12 PCs and there's more PCs going on. So, for example, if we've had a spate of burglaries in the area, that team will be pulled from the whole of Thames Valley to focus on this area. So recently there was a few burglaries in Arnie. The rural crime tasking team all went over to Arnie. They were stopping vehicles, stopping vans all throughout the night. So we're quite fortunate we've got the rural crime tasking team. I don't know if any of you have seen Dan Smith. He used to cover Newport. He's now part of that team. So we're quite lucky we've got Dan still with us, although he's now part of that rural crime team. I regularly submit a monthly report to the parish councils. So my last 2 have gone through. I don't know if it's something you consider, but a lot of the parishes now put the police monthly report on their website. I'm quite happy to do that. That way everybody gets to see what's been going on in the last month, what we're tackling, what we're dealing with. And I always put a bit of crime prevention information in as well. So this month it was to do with dogs worrying sheep, because the time of year when we do get dogs worrying sheep, what the outcome is for someone who worries a dog or worries a sheep, their dog, etc. So we're trying to put different things out each month. So you'll have over a year, you'll have a lot of different crime prevention information. One other thing that I do set up is that we used to do it a long time ago. We used to have a have your say meeting, drop in and come and see us. And me and Phil used to do it. I reinstated that. So my first one will be the 20th of May between 11:15 and 12:15, just outside here. I'm not going to do a monthly, I'm going to do a bi-monthly because I think a lot of time you don't get a lot of people turn up. We do it bi-monthly. On those monthly reports, your email. So if you need to contact me, you can contact me direct by my email. I'm quite happy to be in there about anything at all. So that's really my primary thought, apart from the fact to say thanks to Josh Richardson also for looking after the area for the last 10 months.
I think, Dave, you also are a coordinator for SID results, aren't you? Speed indicator device results.
SIDS and Speed Watch has changed. I'm not a coordinator. I like to get the information.
Yeah.
SIDS, the way it's broken down now is Milton Keynes Council deal with road safety. They've got a road safety officer called Keith Wheeler. He deals with anything to do with road safety, speeding, etc., anything like that. Speed Watch that we used to do in the village is now overseen by a police officer down at Abingdon called Lee Turnham. Me and Arnie have got hold of a Sentinel kit that we will use to come out and bring out and stick around the village. But there's no problem now. What they're trying to encourage parishes to do, need about 6 volunteers. You go onto the btspeedwatch.org website, do the online course, register yourself. You can buy your own speed gun for £180. So I'm back to the email for that. Anyone who's interested with the links. if you want to look at speed watch.
Yeah, I mean, I have been through this, and I have had a fairly long discussion with PC Lee Turnham about the devices. And again, you know, everyone who's going, I always want to go first because then I can get my bit in first. I was going to say later on that community speed watch is, as David's just described, it's using basically a speed gun. You have to have 3 volunteers on a handheld one, and that means you need a pool. I would have said at least 6 actually.
Yeah.
We used to have more than that. I can see several of us here that used to do it. But at the moment we have only got 5 volunteers, and that includes Steve, if I can say that, another councillor, and George Bowyer, I think it is, or Chris Wardle. So there's only 2 members of the public who have actually come forward to say they're prepared to do this. And it does mean standing out probably for, the sessions are normally an hour, are they, or 2 hours? Yeah, about an hour. And recording the numbers of any vehicles that are actually exceeding a threshold just above the, we're only at 30 mile an hour, well, or 20, I suppose, in the centre here. But we would need more volunteers to make that viable. And once that is going, we're going to borrow a speed gun from the PCB Turner, who's got some. But if you've got one nearer to hand,
We've got
great.
we've got the Sentinel kit, which is slightly different.
Oh, yeah, I know the Sentinel.
The Sentinel kit is about £3,000, a bit more expensive. It doesn't need 3 people to stay with it. You just have 1 person with it, and it actually takes a video shot of the speeding vehicles. It records date, time, speed, and the vehicle details. So you only need 1 person with it. You can actually leave it. If you've got a SID display board, you can plug that thing off, take off the SID, put that there and leave it. As long as you've got a view of it, you haven't even got to stand by it. It will automatically record vehicles going in and out, directional travels with the speed. So we and Arlene are trying to use that. We've been trained on that, and we'll go around the different villages at different times just to show you what it looks like. We're keen to still be involved in community speed watch. Lee Turnham doesn't want PCSOs to be involved in community speed watch, but we feel as villages and rural, we should be. So we will come out. So if you do get your own kit, we'll, as long as someone lets us know we're out this date, we'd like to come out and support you. If it's only for 20 minutes just to be part of that, to be with you, we can do that.
Yeah.
But speed watch is really been taken away from us now.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking to start with the speed guns and buy our own if it seemed to be going well. And then potentially look for a grant to get the Sentinel kit later. But we do also use the speed indicator devices quite successfully, and we do pass that to Sergeant G, Guillaume Ouillet. I think his name. And he does come out and does do enforcement in the village, because only police officers can actually issue fixed penalty notices. And he's done a number of sessions on, particularly on Hanslope Road, which tends to be our worst road. And be cautious if you're driving there, is the message.
That's it from me.
Any other questions for Dave?
I've got one question, Dave. The CCTV, has that ever been used in anger? Have you used information captured on that to help in any resolution?
ANPR.
The ANPR has been used quite successfully. I can't get into the details, but we did in one village, a trailer was stolen. A resident managed to get a bit of CCTV of the vehicle. Bullshit Dan Smith, he managed to put the vehicle, the type of vehicle into ANPR, and the roads going out, and we located the vehicle. It was down in Northamptonshire, so it does work. You can see another hand drop.
No? Okay, well, in that case, thank you very much for coming out then, Dave.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Is it Emma?
Hi.
Hi. Well, I know you've come in just to introduce yourself and so on. As you can see, we've got a little table there so that because we are putting this on YouTube for those people who can't come tonight. So I wonder if it would be appropriate for you to go next.
Are you sure? Is that
and then we
okay?
can-
Apologies, I thought
yeah.
it started at 7:30. Then.
No,
Yeah,
good.
we were.
No, I did.
Sorry,
Right,
I'm Jenny.
and you're Jenny, right,
Yes.
lovely, okay.
Yeah, right. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy because a lot of the reports have actually been sent in to be read out. Apologies, Nick, but I know you're here and David, but you know, as you've specifically come here, I think that would be really great.
Shall I
Would you
just
like
move the
another?
chair?
Yeah.
Around and you can tag team.
So Jenny is chair of the governors of Castlethorpe First School, and well, Emma, all will be explained.
indeed, I have a couple of things to say. So, my name's Emma Wallace, and I am the executive head teacher of the Village School Federation, which is 5 village schools, which are St Andrews in Great Linford, Sherrington School, North Crawley, Stoke Goldington to Rossendale. These schools federated back in 2019, and Castlethorpe have.
So, for those of you who are not aware, obviously, we recently, sadly, had to accept the retirement of Mrs. Boardman, who has, of course, been head teacher at Castlethorpe First School for a long time, and indeed has been at Castlethorpe First School for 25 years, I think, in total. So, her last day was actually Friday of last week, and I know she had a good send-off. The governing board, in light of that, and knowing that Mrs. Boardman was retiring, had to consider what the future might hold for the school and how best we could make sure that it continues to thrive, given the increasing financial challenges that small schools face, and the growing workload that our teachers, our fantastic teachers, have to undertake in order to meet all of the Ofsted requirements. With that in mind, the School Governors Board have taken the decision that we should join the Milton Keynes Village School Federation, which is the community of small village schools, which we think will give a huge benefit to all of us, especially the children and their educational needs. We believe that being part of that school community will allow us to tap into a wider pool of resources, shared experiences, provide greater support to our teaching staff, and create new opportunities for our children, secure Castlethorpe First School role as a community hub for years to come. So Emma Wallace is the executive head teacher, and she will come temporarily to Castlethorpe for the summer term as we're going through the process of federation. We are hopeful, Emma may have more to say on this, that process will be able to complete with the support of Milton Keynes Local Authority in September of this year.
that's absolutely right, Jenny. So the last word I had on it was last week, middle of last week, and the aim is still formally to start the expansion of the federation from the 1st of September. So what needs to happen now is that there will be a full governing board meeting to agree that we will add the school to the BSF, and then the 2 boards will come together and we'll meet to agree a way forward, and then that decision is recorded, and they expand and reconstitute the federation. And this involves the appointment or reappointment of governors. So we hope that we will gain some wonderful governors from Castlethorpe to add to the governors that we've got at the BSF currently. And there will be a new board, and then they re-adopt all the policies. So that's one of the ways that we can support Castlethorpe, is that they will adopt the policies that BSF have on the whole. So it's things like that we can support with. And so we feel that the timeline is okay. Simon Sims, who's the strategic lead for school leadership and access, I think is his formal title. So he's very aware of it. He will be the one that drives this forward, but he seems quite happy with the time frame. We're very, very keen that we get it ready for the 1st of September, because that would be the right thing to do for everybody. and it gives me some time to get to know the school next term. So I will be spending roughly about 25% of my week around and about, not always in school, but working on the school. And then they will, you know, we'll be able to find out what's going on and support and get to know everybody, get to know the staff, and then we'll be ready to federate in September, when we can, you know, the staff will be able to come and join lots of things that we do, and we'll be able to work more collaboratively. And as Jenny mentioned, it really is about supporting workload and kind of work-life balance is one of the reasons that we're doing this, because we have, as Castlethorpe does, you have specialists, teacher specialists who, but when you're in a very small school and you're not federated or not joined up with anyone, you are carrying an awful lot of hats. So the hope is that the teachers at Castlethorpe will actually be able to kind of just go down to what they're really passionate about, and actually there's other people around the federation that will be able to support those other areas. So it's a very exciting time. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I mean, I think probably almost everyone in the room has either been to the Castlethorpe school in a couple of cases, as I see Jim, but or has had our children and grandchildren going there. So I hope it will, this new era will retain the culture of small school, but with the economic well-being of a larger group.
We hope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something that the village has always been very passionate about.
And that's it across all of the village schools. And it's been lovely that we, you know, you're joined together with like-minded communities actually. Yeah. And I think it's about that looking outwards and the things that we're able to do, if you're more right, just after a couple more minutes, is things like we've just taken the whole of the Key Stage 1 children in the 5 schools to London, to the National Gallery, and on the London Eye. So we were able to do that with everybody together. And I think trying to organise trips like that when you're on your own in a small school is near on impossible. Yeah. So we have a health and safety advisor that works across our 5 schools and will work across Castlethorpe, who's able to support with all the risk assessments and things like that. We've got all the children going to Kingston Gym because you've got this area, but not all of our schools have got access to a gym. So they go to Kingston Gym for 3 weeks and they're able to use proper sports equipment. And we're trying to, you know, we have times where we get all of the children together in one school so that they feel part of that bigger community, especially you know, before they transition to our larger schools. I know some of our children go to much bigger schools. You're going to be the biggest school in the federation actually when you join, which is really exciting. So one of our schools is actually 16, so they are really tiny. But it's that feeling of being in that larger community, and it's a very really positive thing. It takes a little while to get used to, but you know, I think we're a little bit further down the line, and it'll be lovely to just, you know, to be able to gently support you into where we're going and where we are now, where people work so well together. I've just had an inset day on Friday on the last day of term. So instead of just 2 staff working together, we had 17 staff all working on the curriculum and sharing that load. And we used Microsoft Teams very successfully to be able to communicate. So it's really exciting. I'm very passionate about it, so I will stop now.
That's great. And there is actually quite nice little article in Castlethorpe News, which has been delivered this week, hopefully tomorrow actually.
See the real person.
Any questions for Emma or Jenny? Okay. Well, in that case, thank you very much for coming and introducing yourself, Emma.
That's
really good. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. Oops, I can change the name. I renamed it for PCSO Dave Huckle and then got to rename it for you. So. Right, I think what I should do before anyone else says the remainder of what I've got to say, is give the Parish Council report. It has been a very busy year yet again. There is, as I just indicated, a special edition of Castlethorpe News that will be coming out today, tomorrow, certainly this week. And there's a full report in there. So I'll just try and give you the highlights now rather than going through it blow by blow. I'll come back to the Jubilee. I was going to mention the Parish Council contribution, but I think we'll try a few of us putting it together to talk about the Jubilee as the next item. George has already mentioned the neighbourhood plan. There's a lot of work that went into that. We did need to bring ourselves in line with the new local plan that Milton Keynes Council had developed since we did our first neighbourhood plan, the so-called Plan MK. And we've now refreshed the neighbourhood plan until 2031, which is co-terminal with Plan MK. It was approved by a majority of 95%. On a turnout of 30%, which you might think is a bit low, but actually it's really quite good, particularly as there were no other elections on that day. So it's just people coming out to vote on this. And I would like to thank Russell and Steve and Leo Dunwoody, who together with me formed the steering group over the last couple of years. And it did take, really quite a lot of work to bring that through. It does protect us against unwanted housing, as George mentioned. Though, as it happens, Milton Keynes Council have now got their housing completions going again with the various expansion areas. So the threat of what happened up at Hounslow isn't really that likely to happen to us or indeed any other parish at the moment, but we have got the neighbourhood plan in case it does. We didn't succeed in getting Gobbies designated as a local green space. We were very disappointed about that. It is outside the settlement area, so it's not in any immediate danger. It's just that being a local green space would have protected it indefinitely, effectively. And you'll see in my article that we certainly felt that Milton Keynes Council were less than even-handed in the way in which they treated us. They were basically just seeking advice on whether they were lawful in refusing to designate it as a local green space, instead of actually inquiring of their legal advisors whether it was lawful for them to designate it as a local green space. And our advice was that it was unequivocally lawful for them to do that, and there would have been no threat of legal comeback. Carrington Close, again, George mentioned that. We've had a lot of concerns about, particularly about the various building conditions there, things like the runoff of surface water and highways haven't, approved it. In fact, there's a lot of the conditions that they're meant to have met, which they still haven't had signed off yet. In fact, they've only just about in the last month had the archaeology report signed off, which was meant to have happened before they even put a spade in the ground. I mean, it's really, I'm not familiar because we don't have very many large works in Castlethorpe, but it strikes me as a very strange way of going on. The two big issues there that George mentioned though came out of what's called the Section 106 agreement that was signed when the original owners, Carrington Estates, applied for and were given planning permission. And the Section 106 places certain conditions on the development, and two which were very important. One was that they have to make financial contributions for things such as additional school places. So there's a slab of money in there for Castlethorpe First School. I can't remember offhand what it is, but it's a significant sum. For healthcare services, which is money that's been set aside for hand slope surgery, not to go elsewhere, but a whole series of other things. And some of it is with the Parish Council. The new owner, Stonewater, who want to do just social housing, just felt that they shouldn't be obliged to pay any Section 106 monies. And when we asked where they thought money was going to come from for all these things, they said, "Oh, the government should pay," which is there goes another pig. The second point was about the amount of social housing in the development. The Section 106 agreement had set it at 30%, which was the normal amount for developments or large developments, i.e. more than 11 houses. But they wanted to go for 100%. Now, the Parish Council, having 100% social housing is, in our view, not a very healthy thing to do, because it's better if you've got social housing integrated with open market housing. You don't want, if I use a coloured word, a choice word, you don't want a ghetto of just, they're the poor people sitting down there. It's much better to have everybody integrated together. And there are Milton Keynes policies that require this to happen. And they just sort of push this to one side and said it's going to be 100%. We did press them on it, and eventually, and I have to say credit to Leo Dunwoody for sort of poking the Parish Council on this. We did go through it in some more detail, and have now they've now actually issued an enforcement order to Stonewater that it's got to be the original 30%. And by the way, one of the reasons we wanted the open market housing, apart from wanting to make sure that social housing was properly integrated with the rest of the village, was because there were opportunities for people in the village who wanted to downsize, but stay in the village, and downsizers don't qualify for social housing. And there were a number of people who had expressed interest in housing who would not have qualified because of their income levels for social housing. So that's why we wanted to do it. It's not being awkward or anything. It's just, in our view, the right thing to do. Fibre broadband, George also mentioned, so he said all of these things. We did have a lot of work trying to get Openreach to put in fibre. Eventually they came up with an unrealistic costing. It would have meant, I think, 70% of the village committing to take fibre broadband, which, as it's more expensive than the current service, it just wasn't going to happen. But fortunately, GigaClear came along, having installed it in Cosgrove and Hartwell, and they didn't require a commitment, and we worked with them, and I was in contact with them just this morning, checking on their dates. They expect to go live in May, in the second half of May, and they will be having a launch event here in the village hall on the 14th of May, Saturday the 14th, at 11 AM, to answer any questions that anyone's got about it, and undoubtedly try to get us to put pen to paper to sign up. But they have invested in the village, and I hope it's going to be good. And they offer one free connection in each build area, which the Parish Council has offered to the first school, which the first school is quite pleased to have, with 17 or whatever it was simultaneous PCs trying to get on the internet. So that's another benefit for the school from the GigaClear installation. Highways. There are always a lot of issues with Milton Keynes highways. We spend most of our time with that and planning, to be honest. And we have to work really quite closely with them. Things like repairing the two narrows that went down, the one on Station Road and the one on Hanslow Road. A big project, in fact, one of the biggest that we've done as a parish council, is to piggyback on the LED conversion, streetlight conversion program that they're doing. So across the borough, Milton Keynes are changing to LED lights. And we said, well, if you're doing that, can we pay an uplift to have heritage style lights throughout the village? And that's what we're doing. It's using it's using nearly all of well, we've still got a prudent reserve, but it's using all the capital money that we've, or just about all the capital money that we've been saving up. But I think it will improve the street scene really quite a lot and just make the whole village look a lot nicer having those lights. And when I drive around some of the other villages and look at the LEDs that were installed, I do think we have made the right decision. And that should be happening. It was meant to have happened last month. I think they're now talking about doing in April or May. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not particularly urgent, but it will happen. We've got some surface water drains, the gullies being cleaned in April or May. We've got a quote from Milton Keynes Council to redo the parking lines in South Street. There's terrible parking problems in South Street, aren't there, John? See you looking at me there. Outside the nursery, where they're actually really quite wide lines there. And we think we can get more cars in if the spaces are the standard width for parking spaces. And we'll probably consider that at the May meeting if some more detail comes through on that. Some rather bad news. Milton Keynes Council did a tree survey, and several of us, including Ian, me and Dave Hines, walked the village with the, I can never say the word, arborologist, I think it's something like that anyway. And unfortunately, the beautiful and rather large chestnut on the triangle is diseased, and almost certainly will need to be taken down before it becomes a danger. So we're waiting for a date, and then we'll have to, Parish Council will have to think about what we can do about a replacement there. That's a great pity. We've responded positively to an offer from BP Pulse to put in under some grants that are given by the Energy Saving Trust to install public electric vehicle charging points in the village. And we will put one in South Street at the east end, that's the far end where it joined the junction with North Street. After representations from residents who withdrew a proposal to install them in the Station Road parking area. As you heard, we continue to use the speed indicator device, which actually, in our humble opinion, is a lot better than the community speed watch, but there you go. Well, basically, it runs 24 hours by 7 days a week, and it doesn't have to be attended. And the data that you get out of it, you can give to the police and say, this is actually what's happening, as opposed to, you know, when you've got someone standing with a high-vis vest and a speed gun, which does have an effect on the traffic momentarily. But we do need more volunteers if we're going to go for this community speed watch. Just some other odds and ends. There's a separate item. What we'll do, we'll hear the other reports and then we'll come back to the Carrington. But when Simon Hill attended the open forum, the open forum in our March meeting, he mentioned two other points. One is that in addition to the 9 houses that are currently being built in Station Yard, and which incidentally, I understand that they're hoping to complete that by the end of the year. But he intends to apply for planning permission for 4 more terraced houses, and they'll go at the far end of the yard, just effectively below the shop, and the land falls away, and then at the bottom there, he's looking to put those in. So the Shop Association have asked him for some land at the back of the shop. It goes out flat for a couple of meters before it starts to fall away. And if we can get a couple of meters, that would allow us to extend the shop. That would be an interesting fundraising exercise, but I'm sure we can do something there. But we've asked him for that, and we'll have to see whether he comes back with a positive response or not. This is the Hill family, of course. I shouldn't say that, actually. It's his son that's the site manager, and he was actually very quite positive with this. Simon also said he'd acquired a bungalow in South Street, Ringer West house, and intends to make a planning application for a further house in its garden, which would be accessed through the hole in the wall by the Buff House on North Street. Now, both of these, the extra 4 houses and this house, will be considered in the normal planning process. We've seen no plans for them yet. And just the last little plug, you'll notice that Castlethorpe News has not been published recently. This is a very slim version of its former self, I have to say. And that's because Russell did 8 years as editor, and we do a vote of thanks for that. And it gave a very professional production to it. But 8 years, Russell is stepping down. So thank you very much for everything you did, Russell. We do appreciate it. I have published occasional leaflets in the last year, really, about every 3 months or so. But we do also have, I would mention, an email subscription site, so you will get news updates if you put yourself on that subscription list, and you can see how to subscribe to that on our village website. But we do need a physical newsletter to reach many of our residents who don't use social media, and that does mean we need an editor. So if there are any volunteers, please do contact Russell. And Russell said he's very happy to give any training or whatever is needed to produce the newsletter. Are there any questions? Steve?
Sorry, Phil, I'd just like to add on the tree situation that I'm sure you're aware that one of the beeches in Castlefield, one of the massive beeches, came down into Castle House Garden, and we had to have that cleared. We tried to get a claim through the insurance company, but as it didn't affect our property, they didn't want to know. But that's caused us to agree to commission a tree survey of all the other trees in Castlefield. Now, some of those trees are actually within the boundary of the church, but we're getting the guy out and we'll try and actually get those trees actually surveyed at the same time. But we strongly suspect that the beech next to the one that came down will be rotten as well. And so that will be another tree.
And that's by Castle House. That's not by the church.
No, the beech is by Castle House next to the one that came down. They're actually part of the same unit. They're 2 stems growing from the same roots. And we heavily suspect that one will be rotten, but we're getting all the trees in Castlefield surveyed, and hopefully the ones to the side of the fence in the graveyard.
If you want to be there when you do it.
Yeah. What we'll do is we'll get a date, and then I think Ian has actually expressed an interest in going around. So we'll just let people know when it's happening. Sorry for that.
So the thing is here is that Leo that came out from Milton Keynes Borough, he's got a long bicycle, goes around the red ways, and obviously comes out and covers villages. But he finds the thing, especially the trees on the highways will come, you can complain to the highway, and the highways will pass on to him. But the trouble is, he hasn't got, he's up to there with his work, and he hasn't got to get out to some of the villages and things other. I mean, Castleville is a bit totally different because it is our responsibility, but it doesn't come under Milton Keynes. We've now taken on those, Chris, they said, we've taken on some, well, I'm asking somebody to come and do it, and we'll go around wherever we need to go around. Because RTM, the grass can do some of the things we need to do any husbandry on these trees in the village. Like at Walton Road, that's the one you were thinking on the other way, wasn't it? That Walton Road, so I'm not saying anything.
Okay, sorry, the other point I make is that the beech that came down, and unfortunately we suspect that at least the beech next to it will have to come down as well. These trees, we just can't replace them because it's scheduled ancient monument land governed by Historic England, and they don't even let me put a tin of fork into the ground without an archaeologist. I usually say an architect, but this time I got it right, an archaeologist being present. To actually so actually looking after the kind of landscape by planting trees is trumped by maybe finding a half a teacup.
Yeah, I do remember when we walked round with a lady from English Heritage, and we were at the time looking to put a beacon, a Jubilee beacon in Castle Field, and she just wouldn't have it in it. I think it was going to go in a couple of metres actually into the ground. She wouldn't have that. So I do remember her looking at Ollie's soldier. And she said, oh, that's been there for ages. Been there since Norman times. But anyway. Anything else anyone would like to raise, General? Okay, well, look, let's now try and cobble together the Jubilee situation.
Should Nick and I go and sit on the?
Yeah, why don't you go over there? And we'll try and do this between us.
I'm next up.
So we, just to introduce this, we know hopefully that the Jubilee celebrations are the long weekend from the Thursday the 2nd of June through to Sunday the 5th, I think it is. On the Thursday, it's an evening event where we hope to have some kind of celebration or pub or something basically in here. But at 9:40 across the country, there will be bagpipes or bugles blown, and there's a particular new tune that's been composed, Majesty, and we've arranged for our bugler, who normally does Remembrance Day from Bradwell Silver Band. He or one of his colleagues will come along and do that. And then there'll be a brazier, and again at 9:45, there'll be braziers lit across the land. So Dave Hines will do his usual pyrotechnics there with the brazier. So that's on the Thursday evening. Now, I know, but I'm not sure when it's happening. We've got the children doing the gardens in the green. Russell and Nick, can you help me on that?
That's the preschool and the first school. I've got little plots that are going to plant with nice flowers and things.
Yeah,
I think acorn. I don't know about acorn.
I think that we're going to plan to do it by the wall, haven't we? So when it's time, but I don't know, does that affect the tree that's coming down? Is that going to be?
No, that's not there. It's just across there.
Okay, fair enough.
But, I mean, and there is, incidentally, if anyone is up for helping, either watching or here, there is a meeting on Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock here in the village hall. As I say, we're trying to put this together because Ashley Barry, who's just moved into the village and has very kindly said she'll organise this. She was going to come along and speak, and she's got all of this at her fingertips. But her son has had a child illness, and so she can't come out, which is fair enough. And then the big event is on the Saturday. We'll be up at the sports ground from noon until 5 p.m. Is that right?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. And there's certainly a barbecue, which Ian is helping to organise.
Well, I've spoken to her husband, etc., and I haven't been in on these meetings. It's the first time I've really known. Well, one other meeting I couldn't come to a few months ago, but I didn't even know about this one until last week on Wednesday. I should be there on Wednesday. I've spoken to him. I am in contact with the gentleman, John knows him. He's been doing hot roast for 40 years.
Yeah.
So he can try and do it. I've got to speak to him up on Wednesday. I'll speak to him before Wednesday. He was going to come back tonight, so we don't know tonight. Hoping he would hot roast it. He took 4 days in Stony Stratford. And he would hot roast it and try and deliver the pig done.
Yeah.
But there is other ways, I said to the other gentleman, there's different ways of doing it. You can talk about it for as long as you spring. I mean, I have got issue of experience in doing cake and type things. I've got the chiller, so we'll leave it to a Wednesday night and see what they're going to say unless they bring something up now.
No, that's great. Yeah. So there's a hog roast courtesy at the end, and there will be, to add literally a little spice to our lives, there will be some vegetarian curries from Dina. And basically the village is invited to come and set up a picnic up at the.
People can also bring their own food if they want.
Yeah, they can bring their own food. And I think there'll be a bar as well, which is being
Bar,
organised.
ice cream, and coffee was mentioned as well. So coffee.
Yeah.
I think Ashley knows, we'll have to wait till Wednesday to
Yeah.
find the
Yeah,
details.
that's right, Wendy, because, I mean, did say the chap the other day, said, what a good idea. I mean, I've got the chiller up there, when we've done those like this before, you do get some salads, so it's only on the pork roll or a beef burger, I think you've still got to have an option, it's only one pork, is do a beef burger, or the little ones are there, you have a sausage roll, and then you have a slick and salads. But
Yeah, absolutely. So there's an advert for it on the back of the news that we're issuing, and I think it's Facebook basically is the main medium for information.
If anybody wants to help, we are looking for new volunteers. And if anybody's got any ideas as well, come along on Wednesday night in the village hall at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, we're also looking to do sort of flower theme festival at the church as well. So being around with the Queen's hats. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think, yes, Dina will leave a beautiful odour of curry in the pavilion for you.
And of course, the other thing is that the Parish Council would like to give every child under the age of 18, so it could be 17 years and 364 days and whatever. But you have to get your applications in by this Friday by 5 o'clock, because we need to order them fairly quickly.
Yeah, it's been publicised for a couple of weeks now.
Being on the village Facebook page, it's also on the village website as well.
Yeah, and there's a reminder in here, but that will only give you or anyone who's watching, a couple of days to get that in. But thanks to Polly Lewis, who's organising that for us. And there is also a new tree that Milton Keynes has planted down in the Chequers, and that is will be a part of the Jubilee, tree. And there's a plaque which is it a veterans plaque?
It was made by a Veterans Association. I have that in my house.
Yeah, which Parish Council's bought and which that will go in. Good. Anything else then on the Jubilee?
I'm after volunteers to make bunting.
Right. Did that come across? Volunteers to make bunting.
what sort of bunting do you want?
You red, white, and blue.
Who's in charge of that? Karen, who's in charge of bunting?
I don't know, it's something here, something
I think Matt was trying to get Jan Vance, who is with the church, in on it, because she does a lot of bunting making. But I think that was Matt wanted to try and get the Castlethorpe Youth Club involved as well. So I don't know if he's got the further with that.
Well, going back to that, there used to be a lot of bunting. It used to be kept in the back cupboard there. Some of it was taken up the sports ground and chucked in the back of underneath the overlook. You've got the key.
There's nothing in the back of the village hall.
Okay, well look, we can discuss this on Wednesday perhaps. Yeah. Okay, if there's nothing else that we can add to that, I'm sure Ashley's mortified that she couldn't be here to talk about that. We'll go on and we'll do the reports. As you're there, Nick, do you want to give the church report?
Okay, that's right. Should you find that one? Sorry, I prepared something that's going to be read verbatim. I do apologise. So I'm Nick Byrne, one of the church members at St Simon Jews. Based in the church, following all the lifting of COVID restrictions, we're now fully open for services. Unfortunately, COVID has left us without Father Gary since November last year. He spent some time in hospital and he's had an extended period of convalescence. So we hope to have him back sometime in sort of next month. Father Adams picked up the slack and he's looked after Castlethorpe and his local services. Last year, we also launched our church website. We haven't had one before, we sort of picked back St James's. So if you go on to castlethorpechurch.org, You'll find general information about our services, baptisms, weddings, funerals, our renovation project, etc. As we're entering Easter week, we do have daily services at Castlethorpe and Castlethorpe churches. We've posted the information on the village website, sorry, the village Facebook page. So it gives us all the dates for the services this week. On Friday, we do have a Good Friday walk, which goes between Castlethorpe and Castlethorpe churches. We start at 11 o'clock on Good Friday. We walk across, it's about a mile, go and stars and things like that. I've never walked it myself, so it's going to be a first for me. Being relatively new to the village, and we end up at St James's at Hanslow with a cup of tea and a hot cross bun. So everybody's welcome to join us if you want to, so feel free. Hopefully many of you will have seen our churchometer, as we called it, outside our church, which is sort of displaying our fundraising efforts. We've been fundraising for a number of years now, and we've actually now reached a total of nearly £197,000, which is roughly 75% of our appeal total. We hope to start work very, very soon on bringing our church up to the 21st century. So that's sort of things like installing running water and loo, more energy efficient heating and lighting, as well as redecorating throughout. We're looking to add a kitchen area as well, which will help us run more community-based projects and events, transforming our church from just a place of worship, but also to a community hub as well. We are continuing to apply for various grants with various bodies, and we are also having a lot more events, which I'll talk about a little bit later, to help support our fundraising efforts. As mentioned, we do hope to start renovations very, very soon, commencing what it means for health and safety purposes, that we will need to close the churchyard for hopefully a few weeks while we install some of the utilities, while we bring the utilities outside into the church. We'd like to assure everyone that the installation has been carefully planned. We will not disturb any graves at all whatsoever. And once we've got sort of fixed dates, once we've fixed dates to start with utility companies, we're going to let the Parish Council know. We'll go on the Facebook page. We will put signs up on the village, on the church gates as well, to let everybody know that the churchyard will be closed for a set period of time. Visiting loved ones will be still possible, so if you do have somebody that you want to visit on a special occasion while we're closed, we can certainly arrange that, but it will have to be an accompanied visit because of health and safety. But information on that will be given when we sort of advise when we're closing. Last bit on the church and the sort of facilities, we've also been in contact, we've been contacted by the Commonwealth War Grave Commission. We do have a grave of Oliver Pearson, who fell in World War II, within our churchyard, and they are going to install a sign which they will keep looking after infinity, basically, but that will be installed on the right-hand pillar of the gates by the wall. So that will just sort of more or less say that there's a war grave in our churchyard. We hope to have that in the next few months. That's all been agreed. We, unlike sort of civilian planning, we have to go through DAC, which is Darcy's Base and Planning sort of committee, and we've got all that sorted out, and we should be installing it in the next few months. So on to some of the events that we've done. Obviously 2021 saw a sort of return to some sort of normality for us. A lot of you opened your gardens on a glorious weekend in July for the return of the open gardens, and also visited our church for the flower festival. That was in September. We also had takeaway bake sales, which were very, very well attended and very well supported. We've also seen the return of our coffee mornings, which I know a number of you have attended. And this month, in the run up to Easter, we have had them weekly, assisted by members of the Castlethorpe Youth Club. Proceeds from the Lenten coffee mornings are to be divided equally between the Church Renovation Fund and also the Youth Club. And while we've yet to confirm a total, because we have our last one on Saturday, we haven't really got all our figures together, the respective charities will get sort of about over £500 each. So that's a really good boost, sort of cash injection for both of those. At the coffee morning, we've also opened the doors to taking donations for Ukraine, which we took the last lockdown today, so we're taking 5 carloads of sort of supplies. So that's an amazing sort of response from the village, both near and also Hanslope as well. Going on to sort of our coffee mornings, as our weekly coffee mornings in the run up to Easter have now finished, but they've all returned to their normal slot, which is every second Saturday of the month from May, and we will continue to collect Ukraine on those days as long as it's needed. We'll have a little sign outside the church saying it's our coffee morning, and we will do our best endeavours. We'll also put it up to the village Facebook site as well. We'll have it. We also continue to collect for the MK Food Bank, and so far we've donated over 300, well, I say not we personally, but the village as a whole have donated over 350 bags of food to people who need it most. So again, thank you very much. And if anybody wonders where they can put it, there's just outside our church door, there's a black bin, and just pop it in there, and we add to that fairly regularly as well. I'd also like to thank the Parish Council for this opportunity to address people tonight, and especially thank the people of Castlethorpe for their continued support and overwhelming generosity at these events we've held. Whether you've paid, donated, looked after the churchyard, or just given your time, we're truly grateful. So thank you very much. I'm almost there, I promise. We've got a few more upcoming events. I've just got to give them a plug, as I will be shot if I don't. We've got on the Sunday the 15th of May between 2 and 4, we have the Duck Race Treasure Hunt, which is around the village. It starts, it's at Castlethorpe Church, and as I say, it's on Sunday the 15th between 2 and 4, so children, grown children, small children, all welcome, even adults, we let them come in as well. And finally, Duck Race, that's probably the biggest event and one of our biggest fundraisers for the church renovation fund. As I say, I think we've still got about another 50,000 pounds to raise, so this is going to be another good push for us to raise funds. You probably see that save the date post have gone out around the village, and it's on Sunday the 12th of June between 1 and 5 p.m. We also, as well as the duck race and we've got a fun dog show which we've had for years go by. We've also got classic car shows and about over 100 stalls. Unfortunately, we couldn't get an RF flight pass last year. We did have one. The one that was closed down for COVID. We were going to have a Spitfire, but I got there too late this year, so I'm a bit kicking myself at that as a bit of a plain nut. Anyway, as always, if anybody would like to volunteer, anyone in the village would like to volunteer, we would be really, really grateful if you could. But as I say, if you can help, or if you like a stall, or if you want to sponsor a corporate duck race, which includes a little advertisement in our race day manual, please drop us a line at castlethorpeducks@gmail.com. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Nick? When do you think the work will all be finished?
It really depends. It's the contractors, trying to get the contractors is the difficult thing, but the first stage will be to get the utilities in, and then we can really engage and get some dates and times. Trying to pin down the utility companies has been quite difficult. Mike O'Shea is tearing his hair out to try and get that sorted. But you know, hopefully a couple of
While the churchyard is closed, is the church not going to be open as a service?
We are going to hold. Good question. We are going to hold services in the church hall. So obviously, I appreciate on Sunday we're having for Sunday school. So instead of having Sunday school, we'll be holding our services in the village hall.
Okay, all right.
Part of the maintenance of the grave was would that be through appointments?
Yes, yes, yeah. If you want to go in, we'll do it like that. Please, yeah, we want to be pro church council, so as better later, so we think basis of the we'll make it happen.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's really great.
Thank you.
While you're sitting there, Russell,
Yes.
do you want to just carry on and tell us about, you've got Village Hall and Historical and Film Societies.
The village hall was shut obviously during the lockdowns, the COVID lockdown, so not a lot happened, but we still had to maintain it, keep it clean and all the services and things. But fortunately, we're now up and running again and we're almost up to the situation where we were before, with quite a lot of bookings, particularly parties at the weekend, and regular bookings from village groups. I'm very pleased actually that it is now, almost back to normal. There have been a couple of regular groups that have fallen by the wayside. One of them is one of which I was the chair, which was the Historical Society. We had the annual general meeting where most of the committee actually have been on the committee since it was formed about 8 years ago. And we thought it was time for somebody else to step up, and nobody did. So you can't run, unfortunately, a society without a committee, so we've had to sort of temporarily close it down. But if anybody is interested in resuscitating, we've still got the bank account and all the minutes and everything. We also used to run the weekly film nights, which showed fairly recent big films, and they were enjoyed by a lot of people that came. But unfortunately, they've had to fall by the wayside as well. So short and sweet.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
Could you just let them know, well, we're having through quite a bit expense over the years, but we're now getting to the end of something out of the sewer.
Yeah.
So people go put the nappies and whatever down.
That's right, yeah, there has been a lot of blockages, and every time it has been caused by baby wipes being put down the toilet, despite the notices everywhere saying do not do it. I think this is a problem in South Street and Threat Close as well, where angry water pipe come out quite often because the main sewers are blocked by baby wipes. It's very expensive when it happens, and we've now come to the drastic conclusion that the only way to do it is to relay the drain slightly larger, which is will be done fairly shortly, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, imminently.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the cost coming down to the nitty-gritty, the cost of Parish Council about £4 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, we had one, just for instance, one blockage cost more than £600 to rot out. So you can imagine it's a fairly major expenditure.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, from that slightly downbeat, I mean, David, would you like to give us the good news about what's happening in cricket?
Do you want me in the mastermind state?
Yeah, go on,
Okay. Well, I'm probably only just about qualified, having played, or firstly played for a couple of 15-year-old schoolboys. Let's go back a few years. There is a report in the Castle News, which I'll go through in a moment. I just want to give some history on the club and its background since I was playing. Anyhow, we started off in through Gobby's Field, which is obviously now an estate, over the little railway bridge on the back of New Road. Our square was in the middle of the football pitch, so happy days. And then we moved over to Station Road on the right hand side there. We played at the bottom and the footballers played at the top for many years, and we've now been at the sports ground since 2000. Along with the junior footballers and the tennis, and I'd like to think we're all very proud of our facilities for such a small village. And those teams that come and play us are quite impressed with what we can offer. We've been, so now it's our 22nd year. I'll just go through the report. Our 22nd year at the sports ground. We have a usual optimism and excitement as we're still overachieving in the South North Dance Premiership League. Indoor nets are now completed. We've had 10 weeks of those in the Radcliffe School, and outdoor nets will start next week. We are moving forward on another level now with an installation of an artificial wicket, which as well as being an extra club benefit, this will allow the club to host a number of junior matches and ladies games in conjunction with Stony Stratford Cricket Club, as well as being a benefit for the village to use. And we would hope in time form our own youth level teams and encourage the ladies to play. As the first team, just play a number of Saturday games, a number of friendly games, and a couple of midweek cup matches, fixtures. Obviously, we'd like to send our thanks out to the Parish Council, the Castlethorpe Sports Association, our club sponsors and members for their involvement in making this facility possible. This year, we've got another first, the club benefits from joint sponsors. We've got a French company in Milton Keynes, Brioche Pasquale, MK Limited, that have supported us for 3 or 4 seasons now. And we get a few freebies for them when it's tea time, so that's very nice. And the Barley Mow Cosgrove, where we have our end of season function, and we have to go along for a drink, as we at the moment do not have any bar premises. So, and obviously we've still got a very much appreciated membership base, as you can imagine, over the years that we've been formed. We are actively seeking a new secretary, and I've been asked by the committee to mention it tonight, in case there's any ladies or anybody in the village at all that'd like to come forward. The role involves taking minutes at a monthly meeting, being a lead contact, just generally being involved with the club. If anybody has any younger members that like to join and would like to be part of it, then obviously you'd be very welcome. We do have our own website, www.castlethorpecricketclub.co.uk. On this, we advertise all our fixtures. All the members of the club are on there, captains, treasurers, and things like that. But basically, when the report does come out, we've got the captain's phone number on there, important people to contact. The added addition of the artificial wicket obviously will enhance the club. We're already enjoying a lovely setting, and I'm sure we'll enjoy, will be a benefit for the village in many years to come. We do have some items to discuss about the Carrington. Is that later on?
Yeah.
That's how the Cricket Club have had committee meetings, and we'd like to put our little proposal forward.
Well, we will come on to that once we've.
Well, thank you for listening, everybody. If there's no questions, I'll sign you all up in a minute.
Well, I was, as they were up, if you want, do come on.
Do you want me next?
Yeah, go on then.
I'll try and be short and sweet. My name's Yvonne Hands. I'm president of Castlethorpe Institute. I'll talk about what happened before COVID. In March 2020, we had a talk on the Silk Road. It was well received, and many artefacts were brought on this journey. So it gave us insight to many of the countries on its route. Joyce Markham, our eldest member, went into sheltered care. Then in April, Barbara Shepherd, a long-time member, died. Then the dreaded COVID lockdown. We opened in August 2021 with a distance tea and cake get-together. And then September 21, a talk on liberty, the Bucks Man and the London Shop. October 21, Mark Neal, a Milton Keynes poet, had us in stitches. So good to have a laugh at last. November 21, our annual meeting saw me re-elected with a new committee. We enjoyed a buffet supper. In December, a carol evening with readings, followed by mince pies and shortbread. January 22,
Jan Bracey gave a talk on her many years of girl guiding, followed by a quiz and melting marshmallows. February, a beetle drive and bring a buy. This was to bring in much needed funds, but we gave half of our profit to Willen. March 22, Maria Greenhill gave an illustrated talk on garden design. Now we're looking forward to this Thursday. We have the talk on the life and times of Stanley Holloway. Next month, Oliver Sawbridge. Also this year, we're having a party to celebrate our 90th birthday, and we meet the second Thursday of each month at 7:30 here in the village hall. I said I'll keep it short and sweet. Do you want the coffee?
Any questions for? Any questions for?
No.
Are there?
Sorry, no questions, but Yvonne has very diplomatically ignored the lovely goodie bags we had at Christmas and the gorgeous Easter eggs with them.
Well, in lockdown, to keep in touch with all of us, I made some bags, and in this goodie bag, we put all sorts of goodies. And then at Easter last year, they had a big Thornton's Easter egg. So we kept in touch with our members, mainly through their mouth guards. we gave them biscuits and tea and lots of goodies. So yes.
Thank you, I'll join. We'll go through it. Thank you very much. Before I go on to written reports, are there any other reports to be done? No. Look,
You asked me to go up to the shop.
please do, John.
Talk from here or there? I'll be very brief as well, Chair. Early indeed, I send their apologies. I think they understand they're not able to do that this time. So I've just put together a few points, some which might come as a surprise actually, but we shall see. First of all, it's been a difficult year for the shop because largely dominated by COVID. It's made keeping a business quite challenging, and many businesses are closed. The good news is our shop is still there. We have a post office. The post office is only part-time, but Dean and Udi keep it open much longer hours on a voluntary basis only as a service to customers. But many of the places that the post office is part-time shut at lunchtime. So we've got a little bonus there from the team. A little bit about the shop itself, and it's got the best selection of quality fruit, veg, bread, cakes, and of course homemade curries. And people travel from long distances to come and purchase items in the store. They also, where possible, sell local produce. I can announce tonight, a bit of a scoop, that when the asparagus season is upon us, they'll be selling local asparagus.
I was going to say your garden.
No. From memory, I think they're the only stockists 4 miles of Mrs. Dartington jams, if you've ever tried those. If you haven't, you might like to. They're not cheap, they're £2.99 a jar, but they're absolutely delicious. And also, if you've got visitors coming, there's something different to try. They also have a large range of chutneys as well. They're at the back of the shop, so you might not be aware of where they are, but the jams are all sorts of different flavours, varieties. What? I found it all right, yeah. I need to say something about prices. You've probably read and seen prices of practically everything we know are going up. Flowers going up, bread's going up. Recently, newspapers went up. In fairness to Dean and Lou, they do show me the kind of increases they're paying to wholesalers, and they're trying the best they can to keep prices increases to a minimum.
It's like Dean all in the shop today, and Dean has had a notice from the people who supply the milk.
Oh, that's
so you'll find the milk will be going up quite a bit in the shop and anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, to just add to what Ian's just said, he's absolutely right. I've seen those notices and stuff. Milk will reach, I suspect, £2 for 4 litres before the end of the year, you say? Well, maybe. But they are doing their best to keep prices to an absolute minimum. The other thing is, if there's anything anyone ever wants, feel free to ask Dina and Udi, because if they've not stopped yet, they will get it for you. They're terribly keen to make sure everyone in the village has their needs met. And indeed, if anyone's got any issues they want with the shop, please talk to them directly. They're very friendly. I'd like to end on that, Chair, by saying that I'd like to pay tribute to Udi and Dina, who run our village shop. They work very long hours. They never complain. They often mainly greet people by their name, give them a warm welcome to everybody. Their service this year through COVID has been absolutely outstanding. We may not have a pub, but we have a centre to our community, and at the moment it's the shop. Thank you, Chair. Happy to answer any questions anyone wishes to raise. Any questions on me?
No, I just think they're amazing. I do.
Yeah, no, just one point on Udi's boys, 2 boys along to indoor cricket match.
Yeah.
Every week for the last, well, I've said about 20 now, for about 10 weeks. Udi did a bit of walking up and down the hall.
Yeah.
But his eldest boy,
pretty good.
Is an exceptional cricketer.
Yeah.
I've heard he will be going on to play for really good side.
Yeah.
This is disappointing to me because they're both in the shop, the 2 boys. And I was hoping we'd have the next generation of village shop kids. But they may be earning a lot more playing cricket. But, thanks, David. Anything else?
Well, the thing is, one of 2 things that I want to know is something, oh, they're there on this or they're there on that. I said, if you want something like that, go to Walden. What's it going to cost? To go to Walden, Newport Packle or somewhere to buy that, come back for one.
Yeah.
No, I'm not paying them a few pence more.
Yeah,
Keep their shop back.
I check the prices pretty regularly,
Yeah.
and they're not that out of kilter. They're, you know, and the veg is outstanding quality. Really is, you know. I think they do a splendid job.
More pizza I wanted for them.
Well, I've spent my life in food trade, and you know, you can appreciate something good. And honestly, that is good.
Yeah. No.
So, right.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Now, look, there are quite a few written reports that come in. I don't think I'm going to read them all. Okay, I think perhaps we could put them on the website or something and do it that way. I mean, I'll just give you a little bit of a flavour. The football is doing really well. They've got 6 teams in total, 3 boys and 3 girls. And if you ever walk across the ground, you know, on a Saturday, I mean, it's just amazing. It's a hub of activity. It's fantastic. And of course, they're inviting other people to come. Zumba, Nikki Birchall apologises. She's not been able to restart the sessions yet, but she'll be looking for, you know, what she's going to do after Easter. The Bowls Club has restarted, and there's quite a long report covering a number of things, but they are looking for new members. If anyone's interested, then they are on the website. The Acorn Nursery is doing well. They've got a waiting list now, which they're very pleased with, and very busy for the foreseeable future, revamping the garden, new fencing, astroturf and so on. And they run the Wallery After School Club at the first school, and that works well. So that's, and the Youth Club, they've had a very tough 18 months, but they are back. And as Tony Rice, the chairman, said, you know, approaching 30 years as a voluntary organisation for young people in the village. They've now got more youth leaders helping out with the weekly events than ever before, and they've got almost 40 young people registered, which actually is amazing. 40. Yes, he's just thanking Parish Council and Milton Keynes Youth Support for helping with getting some qualifications for their leaders. But again, the rest of that you'll be able to read on the website. Any questions about any of these? Before move on to what was to be one of the bigger items, and I must say with 705 views on the YouTube channel, I thought there was going to be a little bit more people turn up.
Yes.
But let's just go back to Carrington. And again, I've written an article in this Castlethorpe news that's coming out. But basically, as many, if not all of you are aware, Simon Hill came along in March. And as well as the developments I spoke about earlier, he said that he's now planning to sell the pub. And he's willing to sell it to the village for a conservative market value. Remember, he originally bought the pub in 2007, intending to turn it into a gastro pub and fish restaurant, which would have been run by his wife. But they've lost interest in this, so they're now looking to move on. Now, I would say that in the village, we have a number of us have in various ways been prodding Mr. Hill along to see if the pub could get reopened. There was actually, in the early days, there was a pub action group, and the remarkable thing about that, it's actually led by Barry Norris. Okay, remember Barry. But one of the things that we did do in that group was try to get some estimates as to just how much money would be involved in refurbishing it. And I have to say, another 10 years has gone by and the condition of the pub has deteriorated even more. But even then, it was looking at about 250,000 acquisition plus about £500,000 refurbished. So, I think, if you're looking at something to do with turning it into a pub, you're talking about at least £750,000. I think some people would actually go into seven-figure sums on that. And Parish Council and individual members have pursued about the state of it. I mean, it has been superficially repaired, I think is the best thing to say, but we're obviously very worried about the big split in the wall just on this side. But the question is, what does the village want to do now? And I think there are two fundamental options. The village has always wanted the pub to be reopened, and it is in the centre of the village, and it's accessible by foot from nearly all of the village. So, in that sense, it's in a really good place. But there are some quite serious considerations if the village were to acquire the pub. I've talked about the cost, and that is, if you divide by 500 households into £1 million, you can just see what is, what the cost per household would be, and of course not everyone would be able to or want to contribute to that. I'm not sure I could. It's a lot of money. Second point is the Parish Council doesn't actually have the statutory powers to undertake the project directly. It's actually for the very same reason that you've got a separate shop association doing the shop. There are, I think, about 50 specific powers that we've got, and one general power, but the general power has got a limit of expenditure about 8,000 a year on it. It's very low. And we don't want those 50 powers do not include building a pub. And of course, the last thing is that parking. So someone would have to take it on. You'd have to project manage it, and you'd have to have someone with financial expertise and someone with expertise in in running a pub. And of course, the other big issue is parking. I mean, there is almost no parking outside of there. We did withdraw. Originally, we had offered the village, the back part of the village green for parking, because part of the village green is actually Simon Hill's land. If you look at the line of the fence running at the back and run that across the green, the bit on the left-hand side is actually part of that. But and we thought about giving an extra few feet, but we actually withdrew that because the green is just used quite a lot now, and that would be a loss to the village. So that means there's really no parking at all in the for the pub. Now, like most people in the village, the parish council had been doubtful that the pub would reopen and considered alternatives, and the most viable would be to put a clubhouse up at the sports ground. I mean, there are almost no other sites that you can think of in the village. But we said that it would be subject to the village supporting the parish council indirectly, because we also don't have the power to do a clubhouse, but it would be a simpler thing to manage. But we would want to do that. And the intention was, at this meeting tonight, was to kick off the discussion about what the village wanted us to do. The clubhouse is not as convenient a location. It's not quite so easily walkable as the Carrington, but there is plenty of parking up there. The costs, preliminary costs, and Darren was able to get us some sort of first drawings done, actually through his father, and some estimates of costs. And the cost of the building was when we did this about 100,000. It's probably inflated a bit now, but you've got to fit it out. So you're probably looking at something of the order of 150 to 200,000. But there is some, if we get this Section 106 money from Carrington Close, there is a slab of that in there, which would make a serious contribution towards 150,000. But I mean, it's still small beer if you're looking at $1 million for redoing the Carrington. We were talking about probably having limited opening hours to make sure this wasn't going to be a nuisance for particularly people living in Thrupp Close. So I mean, it'd have to be discussed, but as a straw man, perhaps Friday evenings, all day Saturday, and Sunday lunchtime, Sunday daytime, and that would also pick up on the Saturday the parents of the children's youth, the football teams, not necessarily for alcohol, but for coffee and other things. They've got a coffee van up there at the moment, and we all know that cricketers like a drink or two after. So you understand. So you'd have to set up those, as I say, as a separate Castlethorpe pub association, but we have done that. Simon Hill will presumably then sell the Carrington Arms, and a new owner might apply for a change of use. But in any case, the exterior of the building would be protected through its Grade 2 listing. So even if it did get converted to something else, but there we are. So we need to start the debate on what to do, and it's basically to try and buy and refurbish the pub, build a clubhouse up at the sports ground, or any other third, any other third option, including doing nothing. We don't have to do something. So in the Castlethorpe News, where I've written this up as an article, pretty much what I've just said, there is also a little survey form, and there'll be a box in the shop if you want to pop that in, or you can send a note to Steve and he'll take a note of it. But it's really which of those options would we as a village want to do, and where should the parish council put its efforts really.
Try another one.
Yeah.
Would the parish council consider an extended the house bar and social area for all of this?
There's no reason.
On that 3 buildings.
Well, there's no reason why not, but it was actually thought that it would be cheaper just to put up a new building, self-contained, rather than trying to actually attach one on. And there is an issue about which way you go, because you can't go backwards.
No.
Because of the
Right,
garage.
those old very late because of the gas tank.
Well, I mean, hopefully the gas tank will go at some point, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, these things, you know, can be evaluated depending on what the village really wants us to do.
I think there's a logical sequence of events here. If the village doesn't want, if someone in the village doesn't come forward and say, I'll take the pub on, which I suspect very likely, then Simon has said he'll sell the pub on the open market for alternative money. At this stage, we don't know what sort of person would buy that and whether they want to rent a pub or a gastro pub or a hostel. So, or a hotel, sorry, it'll be a hostel, I mean a hotel. And it's at that point, isn't it? It's that point when we know that, whether we proceed with plans as you've outlined.
Well, yes. I mean, there are one or two other things which have to fall in place as well. I mean, I think it's reasonably well known that the Parish Council is trying to acquire the freehold of the sports ground, which would make life a little bit easier in terms of agreeing what's to go up there. And that's a process which is currently in train, as you know, John, but everyone else may not. It is a bit complicated. The sports ground is owned by the Allotments Association still, but the Parish Council's got a 999-year lease on it. So I just cannot understand why it was set up that way. But anyway, there you go. And it does mean that
the time, the people on the allotments don't what it's done that.
Yeah, well, it's still something that's causing us problems. And I mean, we've had issues. I mean, I think when cricket wanted to put in a concrete practice strip, you know, we had to go and get permission from the Allotments Association. And there's 10 of them, and only 2 of them live in the village, and the rest are spread across the country. I mean, it really does make life very difficult if you want to move things forward. So, comments really. So there's one suggestion that we extend the pavilion, which we can look at, but whatever's cheaper, I suspect, is the.
I think the finance implications of trying to turn the Carrington back into that. It's probably a non-goer, to be honest, because of the finance involved.
I would think so, yes.
Especially as he's taken out part of the sort of back of the building for our building.
There is no parking for anything that anyone would want to do with the building. If they wanted to reopen it as, I don't know, a restaurant or pub, there's no parking. Even if they've got a change of use, which is difficult to get from pub to open market housing, you're bound to provide parking spaces. And so even if you wanted somebody wanted to change it into apartments, they wouldn't have the parking. So I guess they wouldn't get planning permission.
I just don't know how it would work, Steve.
No.
But I mean, the plain fact is that there isn't parking.
I would say that all things being equal, the conservative market value of that place would be a £5.
Well, he did say a realistic price.
Well, no, I mean, you'd be a motorbike for a £5. You know, it's just too difficult.
We don't, till something happens, we don't know, do we? Yeah.
Yeah, so, but Dave's point is it's just a non-starter.
Obviously, Simon
For the village to buy. They give him a good cop out if the village did one.
I mean, the other thing for perspective, pub owner, is that there is competition now. I mean, the navigation is just down the road, and they put a huge investment in there to make it into, I would say, a middle range restaurant. It's quite nice, really. And in there. And you've also got the Barley Mow, which works unbelievably hard to, with putting on different events to attract people. Never mind that just up the road you've got
Club at Hanslope, I've got the What Signs at Hanslope, I've got the club.
You've got the public road, have a show, and all that.
So-
Whatever you do, the job when you learn it.
I mean, the thing about waiting is, how long do you wait? I mean, we waited and waited because Simon continually said to us that he would reopen it as a hub when he did the station yard to get the economies of the scale. And now, he's, you can't blame him. It's probably not a viable proposition. He's not going to go ahead with it.
But if there's anything like the owner of the club that Hanslope, then it's not to be trusted.
Moving on. I think the laws of line will probably do apply here. So, any other thoughts? And I mean, if people are watching this on YouTube or Facebook, it's important that you let us know and that you fill in the survey results, so that the parish council's got some information about what the village wants. Anything else? Okay. Are there any other?
If there's no parking for a pub and not enough parking for apartments, what will happen to the building? I mean, it's a listed building.
Yeah.
Well, it depends how you go about parking. There's two places outside. If it went private, there's two places outside. You can't.
It's planning regs.
Yeah.
Correctly listed multi-story car park.
Yeah.
That can't be problems in the region.
Well, I mean, it might be that a planning permission did require parking to be made at the rear.
Yeah. I think that'd be almost certain.
And
Yes.
I mean, the parking that's at the front is not private parking for the pub, it's the public highway.
Or for
and by the way, it's also used by use of the village hall. Anyway, South Street is got its own problems with parking anyway, making it worse.
Everywhere, problems of parking.
Right, is there anything else anyone wants to say or any other matters?
Yeah, I've got one thing. I'd like to thank Tony very much for getting rid of some of the graffiti down.
Oh, no, I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah,
It's not too high.
But you've made a good job on the footbridge going over. the
Yeah,
top.
I've got to do the bit.
There's Castlethorpe. You're going to do Castlethorpe Beach as well.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, I mean,
Once it pay up, it rains.
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should all really
Yeah.
appreciate what you've done.
I do appreciate that. Yeah, thank you very much.
It's hard now, isn't it?
Right, Tony, it's 2/3 Castlethorpe, but we can see it all from the Castlethorpe side. You can't see it from the Gosgrove side. Well, you can see it from the Castlethorpe side. But yeah, well done.
Okay. All right, are we all done then? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate that very much. Good evening. Bye.